Now, I'll start out with the usual warning that this video will contain spoilers for the latest episode of Clone Wars called Together Again. So if you haven't seen it yet and you don't want anything ruined, it's a really good time to click away. That said, we come to it at last, the end of this story arc that has been, in my opinion, pretty mediocre at best. When all is said and done here, it's basically acted as a lead-in to the final arc of the series, which is of course the 4-part Siege of Mandalore. And so the question then becomes, did we need a whole arc that was otherwise rather irrelevant just to have a final episode that explains how Ahsoka ends up on Mandalore where Maul is? Because as far as I've seen, not too many people have been fond of the Martez sisters that we were introduced to here in this arc, and they of course replaced a different character altogether that we were going to get, which was Nyx Okami, who was originally going to be a bit of a love interest for Ahsoka, which may have made her decision to go to Mandalore with Bo-Katan at the end just a bit more difficult. Instead, this arc kinda ends with Ahsoka basically saying to the Martez sisters, "Bye guys, it was a fun couple days and I'm glad maybe you don't hate the Jedi quite as much as you used to." Furthermore, these are two characters that I'd be surprised if they turn up elsewhere, though I guess you never know with Disney. All I know is there's been a lot of pretty harsh things said about them, especially Trace, the younger sister, who seems to constantly make dumb decisions or miss the obvious. Even in this last episode here, she didn't seem to understand Ahsoka was trying to free them by promising to divulge information about the sister's family to the Pikes, even though her family is already dead, and it should have been obvious Ahsoka was just acting when she turned on the sisters. Anyway, in the end here, I don't really see how this arc was supposed to be important for Ahsoka. It's not like she formed that strong of a bond with these two sisters. Again, she just kind of says goodbye at the end, and they say they understand she's got to go and do what she's got to do. I mean, some of the things Ahsoka was apparently supposed to learn are that not everyone thinks the Jedi are great, and that from time to time a Jedi is forced to make very difficult decisions that may see some people get hurt or even die in order to save others. And these are two things that really shouldn't have come as a surprise to her. She herself has had to make difficult decisions that have put others in jeopardy before. And sure, maybe she didn't know the extent to which the Jedi were disliked or not trusted, but these episodes didn't really show that so much. Only the sisters ever mentioned it, and we see nothing to indicate others feel the same way. In fact, learning that the sisters' family was killed because of the actions of the Jedi almost nullifies the point about so many not trusting or liking the Jedi, because now Ahsoka could just assume that when the sisters talked about how many don't like the Jedi, they might be a bit biased because, again, their family was killed, albeit inadvertently, by a Jedi. And don't get me wrong here, as I said in a review a couple episodes back, not every episode or story arc needs to be deep or greatly expand the story or the main characters within it. There have been plenty along the way just like this one, and some that were arguably much worse. There's also been many that were much, much better. In other words, this was a pretty standard or average Clone Wars story. As I said then, these type of arcs are really nothing new to the show. The problem, I think, is that, again, a lot of people went into this final season, these last 12 episodes we'll ever get, really expecting or wanting a very streamlined experience, or nothing but very relevant, big-picture progressing episodes, leading to a climactic finale. And though I think we're still going to get a hell of an ending here with the final arc, I can't help but feel like we just got these two story arcs out of the way, like they were small appetizers, and now we can move on to the main course. And that's not to say I didn't enjoy the Bad Batch arc before this one, but as I said in those reviews, we'd seen them before in rough animation, and if somehow given the choice, I wouldn't take up 4 of the final 12 episodes to finish them off. Though I will forgive them if we somehow get a Republic Commando style game with those 4 characters, where you can use or take control of these 4 different troopers, all with very different and unique skill sets, to get through missions. Anyway, setting aside that little delusion of grandeur, I do wonder how much this story arc suffered by removing Nyx and replacing him with the Martez sisters. Now, according to Filoni, this decision was apparently made because they decided they didn't want Ahsoka to have a love interest at this point. But I'm guessing since they likely kept the outline of the story pretty much intact, it was set up more for one character and for Ahsoka to obviously become more interested and involved in that one character. Instead of her in this story now acting as basically a point of contention between two siblings, which again culminates in them just kind of saying goodbye and good luck to each other in the end. As for what preceded that ending, or the rest of the episode, it was okay, probably the best of the arc, but mainly because of more external reasons, not because of the episode or the arc itself. You know, things like getting to see Maul and seeing how afraid the Pikes are of him, or learning that his criminal empire seems to be flourishing behind the scenes. Bo-Katan is another great character that I'm happy to see come back to recruit Ahsoka. But again, all of these things really didn't have anything to do with the arc itself necessarily. They're just setting up what comes next. And I don't know, maybe a bit better ending here could have been if the sisters didn't come back to try and save Ahsoka, even though the reason Rafa, the older sister, gave to wanting to save her is because she basically didn't want to be shown up by Ahsoka. I don't know, that was kind of strange. She was all about abandoning her for the longest time, and then suddenly is afraid she'll look bad or something. I guess that could just be her way of covering the fact that she maybe is having a change of heart towards Ahsoka. Either way, maybe it's a bit more powerful if they don't come back for her, if they stay angry at her and the Jedi, even though Ahsoka probably didn't want them to come back in the first place and to try to rescue her. She may have secretly, though, wanted them to come back just so she knew they cared and maybe their opinions of the Jedi were changing. And if you end it that way, with them not coming back for Ahsoka, the episode could then end with Bo-Katan basically saying, "Come help us, it's not like you've got anyone or anything else." And so Ahsoka has to reluctantly, sadly agree. I don't know, I just find the ending we got to be rather generic, when it maybe could have been a little bit more. Which is pretty much my summary of this whole arc. Maybe it could have been more, or should have been something else altogether. Again, in the grand scheme of things though, or looking back at all the arcs and episodes we've ever got, this was not the worst, nor anything too far from the norm sometimes. It just feels like we should have gotten something a bit bigger and more impactful here in the final season. Though, I'll say it again here, I really think and hope the Siege of Mandalore arc will make up for these first two arcs and be what I think all of us were looking forward to when we heard the show was coming back. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you thought of this episode or this whole arc, or how these first two arcs or 8 episodes have been. Are you happy with what we got, or feeling a bit let down? Whatever the case may be, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.